Hello everyone, I am Wesley, he, they, and I am back with another tea time. For this one, I wanted to talk about my experiences between testosterone gel versus testosterone injections. Heads up, I will be talking about needles a lot, so if they make you uncomfortable, just keep that in mind if you decide on listening further. Also, important warning, I am not a doctor, and these are simply my experiences with these types of medicine. Viewer discretion is advised, and understand that I am not saying that you will have the exact same effects or changes, or even the same changes in the same time frame. Now that that's squared away, let's get into it. So, when I first started my transition, I started with the testosterone gel. I chose this one at first because while I'm fine with needles for the most part, I'm a bit weird about them, and I will elaborate on that further later. So, when my doctor and I were discussing the options, I picked the gel. I got my first prescription filled for it and was given a small box by the pharmacy that contained 30 small tubes, all labeled testosterone gel. At first the tubes seemed kind of small to me. I did find out that they may look small, but they pack a lot into there, via me using the cap of one to poke the hole in as it was designed, and it coming full force out of the tube. So at first the tubes, my instructions were to apply it either to my upper forearms or on my abdomen, basically the area right above your belly button. I tried both methods and had some varying results, but even with the one that bursted open on me, I don't think I ever wasted a tube of the gel. You do have to keep in mind the temperature for the gel as far as where you keep it. If it gets too hot, it'll be a bit more liquidy instead of a gel consistency. So during the summertime, I actually had to start keeping the tubes in my basement by my computer here. Since the gel had a drying time of about 2 to 4 hours, I would put it on at night before bed, let it dry partially, and then I would put on a shirt afterwards to keep any of the sticky residue from getting onto my bed sheets. Then in the morning, I'd wipe it off with a washcloth I kept only for my use, so I didn't end up spreading anything else anywhere else. This was a pretty solid system, and some nights I would have the time to do it early so I could wipe it off early, so I didn't have to go to bed with my stomach or arms being tacky from the gel residue. I also enjoyed the tubes because I am neurodivergent in a couple of fun ways, so having it as a part of a nightly routine was a lot easier for me to remember. The only downside to the gel I really had was some serious acne popping up, and this is pretty standard since this is considered a second puberty of sorts, so it was something I was expecting. I was not expecting how much I was going to feel it and how much it was going to spread. I had it on my face and all over my back for a pretty decent amount of time, and it was not quiet. It hurt kind of bad sometimes if some of the spots were really sore. It wasn't horrible, but it sort of shortened the amount of spoons I had for the day sometimes. The other things a lot of people talk about on tea is the mood swings, but I can't really say I had any changes there aside from my fuse becoming a little bit shorter. I used to have a lot of patience with things and was able to brush a lot of things off, but lately it's been harder to give up time in some instances. I was prepared for this, and I had talked to a therapist as well as did my own research on how to handle it, so outwardly I don't know if there's been any huge difference other than being more succinct and maybe a bit more confident or forward in some decisions, but that's about it. But I will note that I can't be certain those changes were because of the testosterone. There was a lot to deal with, and some personal and life instances that happened way before going on testosterone that sort of burnt out a lot of the patience and general benefit of the doubt I used to be able to give. So, while I do have some more sour moments, I really can't attribute the change to the medicine. So I was on the gel for about 6 months, and at the end of this period, I had another blood test and checkup visit with my doctor. The blood test that came back showed that my testosterone levels were stuck around the 313 range. So the doctor asked me how I was using the gel. I did the whole explanation, and she recommended that it may be time to move on to the injections. This is because testosterone levels are usually around the 500 nanograms per deciliter mark. And while the lower level sets can go down to 300 at minimum, it's generally good to keep them as in the middle as possible. They should also never go over 1000 nanograms per deciliter. This is bad for a number of reasons, but I'll probably go over that in a future video, so we'll leave that for then. Anyways, so the doctor then set out the prescription for the testosterone vial, which I specifically received the testosterone cypionate in the vial. This is one of the generic brands, I think. And I think the lowest cost for testosterone out there, as far as I'm aware. They also prescribed me the needles I would need for drawing up the medicine and for injection. The needles are strangely not covered under insurance, at least for me. But a pack of them, even without insurance, isn't incredibly expensive. The testosterone is covered by insurance, but even without the cost for one vial, isn't that much either. Now, one vial really only gives you like 2 doses, 2.5 at max. So that is going to depend on that as well. So if you buy a bunch at the same time, which happened for me, then it's a little bit more, and it would be more overall. But one at a time, not that much at all. So I'm in budget. I had the new prescription, and I had a nurse's visit to learn how to do the injections. Awesome. So I go to the nurse's visit, and she starts grabbing the things required for the injection. We go through the steps. I'm a little shaky, or I managed to push the needle in with no problems and take my first injection dose of tea. Yay! So now I get to swing back around to my peculiar interactions with needles. In the past, when I've gone to get my blood drawn, the nurse would do the usual, if you need to look away, that's okay. And every time they would say that, I knew I would have to explain. I'm not sure exactly why, since I don't remember any bad doctor's visits, but I have always had to look at the needle when it goes in. Not exactly stare it down, but not break eye contact either. I've tried to do the look away thing a couple times, but I get this rising panic. I think it's because I'd rather know when it's going to happen so I can force my body to relax, because otherwise I just tense up a whole lot. So when it came down to taking the testosterone, since I'm the one doing the injection, I knew I would be fine for the most part. And for the first 2 injections, I was becoming familiar with the steps and how to insert the needle quickly. Then when I took my 3rd dose, I think I shook myself up a little bit. And honestly, over nothing, really. But I just didn't know that at the time. When I did my 3rd injection, I did the preparation steps and hyped myself up. I went to push the needle in, and I hesitated. Just for a moment, but I hesitated, and it hurt just a little bit more. Because I pushed it in slower than I probably was supposed to. So okay, not fun, but nothing too bad there. But when I drew the needle out, I put the cap on, placed it in my needle safety bin, and then I felt something start to run down my thigh. I looked down and just saw a long, thin trickle of blood easily making its way out of the injection spot. This made me freeze for a moment before I grabbed a gauze pad to hold over the location while I properly discarded the rest of the syringe, and I just had the one thought of, oh no, I did it wrong. Because you're not supposed to do the injection into a vein. You have to stay within the muscle. So even though I did the little drawback thing to check for blood, which came up with none, I was worried that I didn't pull far enough back to see, or maybe it just didn't come through for whatever reason. So I was also worried because I didn't know what the dosage I had would do if you just put it right into your bloodstream. So it was a bit of, is this going to send me to the ER kind of panic? So I stayed calm, even though I was feeling the adrenaline rush creep in, and I grabbed my phone with one hand to look up why this might happen. You know, since this was a bit more than the normal amount of blood you're supposed to see from this. What I've realized I did was sometimes you can nick smaller veins while doing your injections, which will cause it to bleed more. So even if the needle tip ends up in a good spot, it can pass by some smaller veins even on the outside of the thigh. So I also made sure to look up if the dose I'm taking would do anything if ending up in the bloodstream, and thankfully it doesn't really do anything except sit there and slowly absorb into the body. So with a sigh of relief, I knew I was good, no ER visit had to happen, and I wasn't going to have to retake the dose. All it really ended up doing in the end was giving me a small, bad bruise and hurting more when I inserted the needle for the injection. So, I thought I was good. Then next week rolls by. I do the steps, I line up the needle, and then I froze. I had the tip hovering over the spot, and I just couldn't move for a second. It was a moment of, brain, why? I was just frozen like that, doing deep breaths, trying to psych myself into doing it because I want it so bad. I did manage to push it in a little bit. Then when it started to hurt, I panicked and I pulled the needle out. I was so mad at myself, and I sort of tried to use that to sort of bully myself into finishing the dose. So I replaced the injection needle and I went to try it again. I pushed it in a little, and again, I froze and I pulled it out. At this point, I was so frustrated with myself and I didn't want to waste another needle, so I discarded the second one and told myself I'd try it again in the morning. I was genuinely worried I wouldn't be able to do it again because I had scared myself. I had let the worry from last time get into my head. So I ended up looking at some nearby clinics just to have a backup in case I backed out again. That way I could take my medicine to them and ask them to jab me instead. I even found out that there are over-the-counter products for mild numbing on the skin, but I don't know how effective that is, and maybe it's something I'll try in the future, but I don't know. So, thankfully, in the morning, I was able to do the normal setup. I took a couple of deep breaths, and I smoothly and painlessly injected the dose with no issue. Bada bing, it was done. A day late, but I did it. And I used some treats that day for some positive reinforcement. So now I'm a couple more doses in, and while I still have to stare down the needle and take some time to build up to the injection itself, I think I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to have a problem with it. Until I nick a vein again, at least. All in all, I do have notes for each version of testosterone I took, and maybe you'll be able to take this data and learn from it if testosterone is ever on the table for you. When I was using the gel, the positives I experienced were this. The gel was easy to apply and only took about 15 minutes to rub it in. Then I would wait for 2 to 4 hours for it to dry. I had to do it every day, so for my neurospacey brain, it wasn't hard to remember to do it before bed. The gel is also good for people who are really afraid of needles, so that's a plus. And your T levels stay consistent across the board, so it has less of a chance for mood swings and other changes. The cons, however, do leave you with something to think about. Because the gel left behind a sticky residue that still has testosterone in it, not only are you sticky for longer periods of time, but you have to be careful with what you touch. It's not safe for pets either, because their levels are different than ours. So if it rubs off on them consistently enough, it could start to get to them a bit. It's also not safe to transfer to family members or partners by accident as well. So you do have to let them know where you applied it so they can avoid touching that area on you. So now for injections. The positives on this are mainly just not being sticky anymore. And for me, I had no more back pain. Weekly injections also might be easier or harder to plan depending on your schedule. The levels can also fall and rise a bit, but not outside of the normal range. They just warn that some people might have more mood swings because of this. So now the cons of this method are obviously clear. Of course, if you're bad with needles, this is sort of maybe going to be a non-option. But if you're like me and you have bad skin absorption, then there are clinics you can go to where they'll do it for you. Or if you're able to go the pricier method, they do have auto-injectables, which are the most expensive version of this, but it's another option for people who dislike needles. Doing it weekly can also be a bit spicy for the neurodivergents like me, because while you might have time in your schedule, it may be more easier to forget. This is something really, really important to me, so I haven't forgotten a dose yet. It's on my schedule. I, keep track of it as close as possible. But there have been days where I have gotten down to the wire, like almost midnight. So then the course of this application can also be a bit more complicated at first. It doesn't take 2 to 4 extra hours though, so I do consider that one a win. As far as comparisons between the two, I haven't really noticed any big changes besides my acne disappearing so quickly. Everything else has stayed largely the same as far as I can tell. I'm just mainly glad I'm not sticky anymore. And even with the one scare, I feel pretty confident now in doing the injections. Overall, they both aren't bad methods for taking testosterone. I know there are other ways of taking testosterone out there, and I don't know if I'll ever want to or have to try them, but if I do, I'll definitely make an update about it. As far as what is the right type for you, thine trans man or trans masc or non-binary individual listening, is going to be up to you. Some people may be able to only do one or the other despite certain circumstances. For example, some people can be allergic to some of the injection components as well, or you can have a bad skin absorption rate like I do, or some other random thing like, I don't know, maybe it makes you too pretty or something. Who knows? And I think that's all I have to ramble about for testosterone, really. So, and with that, thank you for coming to my tea time. Medicine responsibly, my peeps. Thank you for tuning in, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Stay proud, my trans siblings, and stick with us!